For a long, long time, people have noticed that in certain places and under certain conditions, sand sings. Well, sings isn't quite right. There are beaches. Can I get a beach? Thanks. All over the world, where if you walk along, the sand underfoot, you hear this? Like a frog, it croaks. It's a very distinctive sound. And no one's quite sure what produces the sound, but far more mysterious and even rarer, there are only about 30 places on Earth where this can happen, sand will, well, you'll see. Here's our correspondent, Chad Cohen.
Listen. You hear that sound? You might think it's the wind, but it's not. It sounds like a sustained musical note coming from the sand dunes themselves. This is the sound that has mystified generations. Marco Polo noticed it in the Gobi Desert. Ancient travelers have heard it in the Sahara. Even Charles Darwin puzzled over it in the Chilean desert. So far, no one has been able to explain what it is or why it happens. That's why Caltech engineers Melanie Hunt and Christopher Brennan are here at the Dumont Dunes in Death Valley, California.
This location is one of about 30 places around the world that have what are described as booming dunes.
For the last 2 years, the Caltech team has been trying to figure out just what makes these 30 locations so unique. What about them causes the sand to sing? Their theory is that the booming dunes are really like an enormous musical instrument. Imagine the loose moving sand particles on the surface are like the vibrating strings on a cello. And underneath the surface, you'll find a damper, harder layer of sand, which reflects and magnifies the vibrations, just like the body of a cello does.
Better get your goggles on.
To test their theory, the Caltech team has to trek up the 300-foot-plus dunes. When they reach the peak, they have to simulate an avalanche to put the loose sand in motion and make the surface particles vibrate. A task they've learned is best accomplished on the seat of their pants.
Ready, set, go! Now, wait a minute, don't go too fast.
But on this, their first run of the day, the dunes are silent.
It's too bad, hardly booms at all.
What could have gone wrong?
Today the wind is not blowing in the normal direction. Usually the wind blows from that direction over this way, leaving a lot of loose sand on this side of the dune.
That missing loose sand has an unusual characteristic. The sand grains are almost all the same size, so that they resonate together.
And we believe that that's part of the explanation for this booming sound, that all the grains are more or less the same size. So when they flow over one another, they hit each other at a roughly the same frequency. Just as a bow rubbing over a string has a characteristic frequency.
50 feet down the dune, they find what they think they've been looking for. A patch of loose sand that looks promising.
Go!
As they slide down the dune, at first they hear nothing.
Come on, keep going, guys. I got a little bit of a boom.
And then, suddenly,
A little bit of a boom. You hear it there? We got it! Down here, Mal.
it is the music of the dune.
Not nearly as loud as it has been other times, but we still certainly heard it down there.
To record and measure this booming sound, a seismic device called a geophone is buried just below the surface. Later, back at Caltech, this data gets fed into a computer.
And this shows you that the sound that we were hearing is predominantly a single frequency.
a frequency equal to the musical note G. Over the last 2 years, the Caltech team has observed and documented that the sound of the booming dunes actually changes from day to day and from dune to dune. What ultimately determines the musical range, they think, is not just the size of the sand particles, but also how much space there is between the top where the sand is loose and that hard surface down below.
Another 4 inches, 3 inches.
The greater the distance between the two, the lower the frequency and pitch of the booming dune.
Got a good consistency to it, hasn't it?
So, after 2 years of research and frequent visits to 3 of the 30 booming dune sites worldwide, here is what the Caltech data has shown. For a dune to boom, it must be at least 150 feet high, there must be loose dry sand of similar particle size at the top, and a hard layer below. And the sounds recorded fall into the musical range of either an E, an F, or a G. So, is the mystery solved? Well, not quite yet. There is much more documentation to be done, more readings needed to confirm their theories. But this resourceful team of scientists is hopeful that one day they will be able to prove their premise. And when they do, they can proudly claim that they accomplished it by the seat of their pants.